I stand before you a proud employee of Johnson & Johnson, but I also stand before you proud to be born and raised from the city of Philadelphia. You see, Philly instilled in me three things: toughness, grit, and when things don't go right, you gotta learn to man up. Now, while my mother instilled in me the foundation of faith, the importance of education, and was an example of strength, growing up in the inner city, that exposes you to, broken homes, poverty, sold drugs, robberies, death at high velocity, or in the system probably, possibly you managed to make it through this atrocity, then you gotta deal with the haters with animosity. But in addition to that, growing up in an environment like that, you only aspire to be three things: athlete, entertainer, or drug dealer. Now, I had one covered because I was interested in football. Now, at a certain point, I developed an interest in cooking, and that was mainly because of a weight problem I had. You see, I couldn't wait to eat. But Mastbaum would give me the opportunity to explore both, Mastbaum Vocational Tech High School. And so while my high school was located in an area full of crime, drugs, prostitutes, and addicts, they actually had really good culinary and football programs. So I arrived with excitement, only to find that neither one would happen. So culinary didn't happen because while I selected my first choice to be culinary arts for my concentration, the school decided to give me cabinet making. Cabinet freaking making. Football didn't pan out because although I did make the team my junior year, while I thought I was going to be a breakout wide receiver, the coaches thought I was a backup defensive end. Now, as my cousin Fred would say, "Are you joking me?" But in all seriousness, due to the fact that there's no culinary, no football to speak of, I had lost all hope and motivation. And so the results were that I ended up failing 12th grade twice. I ultimately got kicked out of Mastbaum. I went to another high school. Months later, I would get kicked out of there. And at this point in my life, the only person that was able to reach me in that moment was my grandma Hazel. You see, my grandma Hazel and I were really close. My mother and I had lived with her for a while when I was a kid. And she had this way of saying, as only she could, "I sure hope I'm around to see you get your high school diploma." But, I mean, you laugh, but that really resonated with me because at this point in my life, I had understood death. You see, because I had family and friends that had died. And so I did not want my grandmother to be denied this request. And so with that, I buckled down, went to night school, and received my high school diploma. Now, graduation day is a day I'll never forget for two reasons. One, because it was one of the few times that I had seen my mother and father in the same place at the same time. But two is because of how happy my grandma Hazel was. She had the biggest smile on her face, but more importantly, and what I'll never forget, is that she had on this purple sweater and these purple pants. And it was just one of the funniest things. But in all seriousness, now what? Because I don't know what to do next. The only thing that I know is that if I don't do something, I'm going to end up getting caught up in the streets. And that only ends one of two ways: dead or in jail. You know where people weren't dying and going to jail? School. So that's exactly where I took my behind. I went to Penco Tech. I studied A+ and Network Plus, and then I would go on to Community College of Philadelphia, also known as CCP. Now, my family was really excited about the fact that I was in college, but honestly, I was only there because I didn't know what else to do. And in that moment, I decided that I need to focus on moving forward. And so eventually, the only thing that really became an issue for me was the fact that I didn't set up my financial aid, but luckily my mother would co-sign on my loans at the last minute. Things were going great, but then tragedy would strike in 2005 with the passing of my grandma Hazel. You see, I had seen her the night before she passed away, and she didn't look right. And she thought that if she just got some rest, she would be okay. But that next morning, when I was leaving CCP, I received a call from the cops. Because I was the only family member that lived in Philadelphia from my dad's side, they had needed me to come identify the body. I'll never forget that day. So I tried to keep going to school the following semester. I tried to push through, but ultimately I ended up on academic probation because my mind just wasn't there. I couldn't man up and push through the pain. And so with that, I took a year off. Had to get my mind right. And so I would go on to work an inventory counting job. Now, we traveled every week, but don't think J&J travel, because this was completely different. This was 20 passengers in a 15-passenger van, no Amex card, and the best hotel we stayed at was a Red Roof Inn, okay? Good. It was in that moment that I realized this was going to be my life if I didn't get an education. And I knew I wanted so much more. And so with that, I returned to CCP with a renewed focus. I also, just to avoid going through a scenario in which the classes wouldn't be paid for, I got a job working at UPS at night. The hours were 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Oh yeah, you heard me correctly, 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Now, while the hours weren't ideal, the job did provide full medical benefits and money for school. But in 2008, something powerful and epic would happen. The election of the first black president of the United States, Barack Obama. You see, as an 80s baby, it was far in between that you saw black men portrayed as intellectuals or in positions of power. And it was in this moment that I realized that relatability is a powerful thing. And so I rode that momentum. In 2010, I would go on to graduate Community College of Philadelphia. Later that same year, I would transfer into Drexel. And then in 2011, I would get my first co-op at, get this, Merck. Now, while that might not be the most popular thing to say in this environment, I gotta admit, things are going good. But then, tragedy would strike again. 2 weeks into my co-op, I'm diagnosed with cancer. T-cell lymphoblastic lymphoma cancer. 5 liters of fluid in my left lung, a mass the size of a baseball on my heart. And honestly, my first thought was that I'm going to die. You see, because everyone who I knew prior to have that disease had died. But there was one glimmer of hope. The doctors had said we had a chance to beat it. And so with that, I would begin my rigorous treatments, my 6-month road to recovery, which included biweekly stays in the hospital, intense chemo treatments. The first day was 24 hours straight of chemo, countless amounts of pills, a catheter in my right arm, and other things that I don't even have time to explain. In the blink of an eye, I lost my co-op. I lost all of my hair. I couldn't be around people because I had a weak immune system. And the only meals that I could eat had to be freshly cooked or frozen. So never offer me a lean cuisine. I've had them all twice. If there was ever a time in my life that I had to man up, this was it. You see, because there was a lot of alone time, there was a lot of dark times. But in that moment, I relied heavily on the faith that my mother had instilled in me. And thank goodness for UPS, because without them without their benefits, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you today. In April of 2012, after all of the rigorous treatments, I would receive the news that I was cancer-free. But life is different, you see, because physically now I'm different. Mentally, while I'm grateful to be alive, I'm battling with survivor's guilt. And even to this day, I still battle with it. It's really just been an adjustment. So moving into 2013, I'm back at work. I'm back at school, but most importantly, they luckily allowed me to still get my co-op. At this time, Johnson & Johnson. Now, I had to move to New Brunswick in order to do this co-op. But at the same time, I still maintained my UPS job at night in Philadelphia with the same hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Now, people thought I was insane. I did that for 6 months. And if you happen to get a chance, Google it to see the commute and imagine the scenario. Hashtag work ethic. People ask why. You see, because where I'm from, people like me didn't get opportunities like this. More importantly, my circle back home, nobody was talking about going to college, let alone a career in corporate America. And then there was also the aspect of the seniority that I had built up at UPS. Just in case J&J didn't work out, I didn't want to let that go. And so fast forward 2014. Now I'm back at Johnson & Johnson, but this time I'm back as an employee through the IT Leadership Development Program. But I also come back as a Drexel graduate. This is the epitome of things going great. But then you get here and then people want to start asking you questions. Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? I said, here, if my check clears. What are we talking about? But see, the peers in my class, my peers in that same LDP program are answering that same question. And they're saying things like, I want to be a manager. I want to be a director. I want to be a CEO. I want to lead an innovative project. Yeah. But you see, for me, I had to overcome so much just to get here. And here was a place that I never even envisioned for myself. So for me, getting hired at J&J was exceeding the actual initial goal. And so I must take time to step back and say thank you. First, to my mother, because when most people did, my mother never gave up on me. The second is for the J&J folks, past and present, and you know who you are, for helping me to adjust my mindset. Now, I stand here before you, a proud employee of Johnson & Johnson, but I also stand before you, a proud product of my environment. I chose this wardrobe today because I felt like I should share my authentic self. And I also wanted to share that with the recent events of unarmed men of color and police officers, I hope that my colleagues can understand that this is something that does affect people within our professional landscape. Now, I may not know the victims personally, but I can definitely relate to fitting the description. But that's another TED Talk. Inspired by those events, and then looking back on my journey in life, last year, my little cousin Michaela, she helped me to establish my foundation, the P.L.A.N group. You see, because I lost so many years of my life feeling like I didn't have any other options outside of being an athlete, entertainer, or drug dealer. But now, when I go and I speak to the kids at the high schools and the colleges, I talk to them about planning for their future successes. We focus on 4 main areas: preparation, leadership, accountability, and next steps. P.L.A.N. See what I did there? Now really think about this. The guy that took 6 years to get his high school diploma, 6 years to get his associate's degree, almost failed out of community college, cancer survivor, worked a job at New Brunswick during the day and worked a night job in Philadelphia at night. Really think about that. Because that guy, as of January 2019, is now an adjunct professor of an accredited course at a school in New York. It's crazy. So here are my asks of you. 1, When things don't go according to plan, adopt my personal mantra, which is don't make excuses, make a way. Things won't always go according to plan, but the results obviously just make for a TED Talk. Number 2, be a beacon of light. You have to be willing to let kids, especially within minority communities, understand that there is hope and opportunity. And they have to see that through either people that look like them or people that come from where they come from. And my third ask is, in this game called life, think dominant, bigger. You can go from nobody to a prominent figure. Don't need credit to discover what is lying in you. You're a starting QB and life's endowment can ensue. What will you do? Stand tall, keep your composure, come up short like cold nights and indecent exposure. Best part of waking up does not involve Folgers. It's downsizing the weight of the world on your shoulders. As you get older, people act colder. It goes hand in hand as you age, that your actions get bolder. As a kid, used to play with the Play-Doh. Now responsibilities and bills take away from my Play-Doh. Make a plan and understand that patience is a virtue. You'll find there is comfort as the square in your circle. Always take positives from negative scenes. Build subconscious cardio for when you're chasing your dreams. Whoever said life is rough, man, true that. When life gets rough, man up, I'ma do that. People claim they starving but scared. Where the food at? Scared. Where the food at? What's up? What's up? Whoever said life is rough, man, true that. When life gets rough, man up, I'ma do that. People claim they're starving but scared. Where the food at? Scared. Where the food at? What's up? What's up? Thank you very much.